Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aissata and today we're doing a classic good old YouTube Q&A. I asked you guys for questions over on my Instagram and you guys delivered. So we're gonna get straight into those. There's a lot today and I want to get through as many of your guys' questions as possible. You guys submitted really good questions. But before we get started, if you guys are not already subscribed, I would love if you could take a second to subscribe. It really helps me out. And with that, let's go ahead and dive in. What advice do you have for someone looking to read more books? If you are trying to get into reading for the first time, the thing that I usually recommend is, what do you gravitate towards when it comes to TV shows and movies? Find those genres that you really gravitate towards and try and read books that kind of have a similar vibe or feel to them. So if you're someone who really loves sci-fi and fantasy or dystopian movies, maybe try picking up a fantasy book. There is quite literally a genre and a book rec for anyone, and I wholeheartedly believe that anyone can fall in love with reading. You just have to find the right genre or the right type of book that'll kind of hook you and get you into reading. And if you're already someone who has been already reading and you just want to read more in your life, I think just making it a consistent habit every single day, taking time that you would normally spend scrolling on social media or wasting your time in other ways, and really just committing to sitting down and reading for 30 minutes a day. Once it becomes a habit, it eventually becomes muscle memory. When it comes to reading, it's not really about being able to sit and read fast. It's really just about consistency. I wouldn't consider myself a fast reader by any means. My sister makes fun of me all the time because she can consume a book in like a day or two. But for me, I just make reading something that I consistently do. It's a non-negotiable in my life, and that's how I'm able to read a lot. Do you ever feel like you're behind in life because you aren't in law school? This is definitely something that I have struggled a lot with throughout my post-grad period. At this point, it's been over a year since I've been in school, and I'm definitely getting to the point where I miss school. I'm someone who just loved being in school. I love learning. I love the academic aspect of it. I also just loved kind of my social life and feeling a lot more busy. And I think seeing on social media people go off to law school, it was definitely really hard for me to see, but I really have come to terms with the fact that everything happens in Allah's timing, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's timing. This was exactly what I needed. And there were so many things that I feel like I've gone through this past year that I wouldn't have been able to experience, grown so much from this period of time in ways that I wouldn't have if I had gone straight into law school. I always kind of planned to take some time off in between undergrad and law school. It just ended up being a little bit longer of a time than I expected. And at first, the type A in me was freaking out, but with time, I really came to see the wisdom in it and how this extra year was really necessary for me. And alhamdulillah that I had the opportunity to take this extra time. Law school is only really 3 years, and in the end, inshallah, I know one day I will become an attorney. So there's not really a rush to get to that stage of my life. With going to law school and becoming an attorney, not a lot of people actually go straight in. It's not as common to go straight in, I feel like, as other careers. A lot of people take time in between to get work experience before going off to law school. So it's not a super abnormal thing, but I definitely think just the pressures of being West African and having these expectations to have your life all set and to not take breaks in schooling is definitely a reality that makes these decisions hard sometimes. Where do you shop? I shop from a lot of different places. The top that I'm wearing right now is from ASOS, and I have been loving ASOS a lot for just more modest tops and just modest fashion pieces in general. ASOS is a really cool brand because they have a really great return policy, and they have just a lot of different pieces that range from different standards of modesty. They have really cute tops and pieces that are really nice if you're someone who wears hijab. I also do thrift a lot. I wish I could say that I shop at more cooler places than I actually do, but unfortunately I rely a lot on H&M. I'm really trying to move away from fast fashion as much as possible, but it is kind of difficult just in the stage of life that I am in as of right now. I really love the brand Shop Fatima Jello. I have a couple pieces that they sent me, but let me know any modest fashion brands, especially affordable ones, that you guys recommend. What's the one thing people always get wrong about you? I really don't know how people perceive me. It's kind of weird to think about the way that other people perceive you, especially when you post on social media. I think people can create a certain version of you in their heads that doesn't always reflect the truth. A lot of people think I'm mysterious, which I feel like I'm not. I feel like I share so much of my life online, but at the same time, I'm really intentional about what aspects I share online. So I guess in that sense, maybe people think I'm mysterious. I'm definitely not an open book, and it takes a while for me to open up in my friendships, so that also might be where that's coming from. But it's not like I'm out here trying to be mysterious or out here trying to be a closed book. It's just a natural part of my personality, and it's something that I'm trying to slowly and surely get better at. How to stay disciplined and consistent. One of the things that I realized about discipline is we all have it in ourselves. We all have the capacity for discipline. Sometimes we're just better at expressing discipline in certain areas of our life than others. Sometimes being disciplined when it comes to academics is easier than being disciplined when it comes to nutrition or fitness or religion. And so I find that the best way to really hone in discipline or work on your discipline in an area where you're lacking is to really channel the discipline you have in other areas of your life to whatever it is you're trying to work on. When it comes to trying to be more disciplined and consistent and show up for yourself every single day, anytime that you don't feel like showing up for yourself on a given day or continuously working towards something, just remember the end goal that you're working towards. I think a lot of the times we focus a lot on motivation and how to be inspired and how to have this vision, but discipline will just take you so much further, because on days when motivation fails, your discipline is going to be there to pick you up. And so it's not always going to be about how you feel, but it's really about the direction that you want to go in your life. And if you have something that you want so badly to happen, if you have a change that you really want to make in your life, you have to prioritize that over the momentary discomfort. The thing about discipline and showing up for yourself is the more that you practice it, the more that you get into that routine and continuously push yourself, the less uncomfortable it'll feel over time. And so at the beginning, it's going to feel really uncomfortable when you're trying to make a specific change in your life, but just know that in a couple weeks, in a couple months, you will get to the point where it'll feel mechanical. What's your favorite book and what is a current read? So I don't have a favorite book. It's really difficult for me to choose a favorite book. It's not like a favorite movie, I would say, where one stands out to me. But I will tell you what I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading The 100 Years War on Palestine by Rashid Khalid. I'm about 36 pages into this one, so not too far. This has been just a really interesting, informative read. And then I'm also finally listening to Atomic Habits by James Clear on audio. The fact that it's taken me this long to pick up this book is insanity. I think for a long time I didn't want to pick up this book because there was so much hype around it, and when there's a lot of hype around a book, I just want to avoid it. But the amount of people that have talked about how transformative this book has been in their own lives has made me want to pick it up. I wanted to pick it up for the last about year, and I decided to finally pick it up given the fact that I'm trying to enter this winter arc phase of the year, and I'm really just trying to gear myself and get myself ready for the new year. I'm actually really happy that I waited till now to pick up Atomic Habits, because I think if I was younger or at a different place in my life, I wouldn't have connected to the book and just had the systems already in place to really make the changes that I needed out of this book. So if this is a book that you read years and years ago when it first came out, maybe it didn't resonate with you, or maybe it did, I would highly recommend picking it up again, because I really do think it is such a powerful and effective book, and it gives you such effective tools, I think, to make changes in your life. So if you're trying to go down any type of transformative journey, or if you're just trying to work on yourself in any way, if you have goals that you're trying to accomplish, I think this is a really effective book to understand just how you can get yourself from point A to point B. It's popular for a reason. How old are you? I just turned 24 a couple weeks ago. How is your iman, and what are you doing to strengthen it? My iman has come a really far way, especially when I think back to myself even just at the beginning of college. I filmed a video during Ramadan almost a year ago where I really walked through my whole journey with Islam. I was born into Islam. I've never once doubted Islam. I've always believed in Islam, but I obviously had my struggles with Islam. Around towards the end of college, I just felt deeply uncomfortable with the fact that I felt like I wasn't being deliberate in my approach to Islam and my Iman. I felt like I was very much going through the motions of it, and every Ramadan would be a spiritual high, but then 11 months out of the year I was just kind of going through the motions. There were a lot of changes that I felt like I needed to make, and 2 Ramadans ago I kind of started to try and make very intentional changes, and I feel like that Ramadan really went far and long way on my growth with my Iman. I know a lot of the times Muslims get made fun of for being good, quote unquote, 1 month out of the year, or finally working on their deen during the month of Ramadan and not being as up to par outside of the month of Ramadan. But you just never know which Ramadan will be the Ramadan that will change things for you or that will set you down a new path. I think it is such a transformative month and time, and just the sense of community that you have can completely shape where you are on the journey. And at the end of the day, it is a journey. And so I think take advantage of Ramadan. It's a great time to want to choose to better yourself and to continue that outside of the year. I am at a place with my Iman where it's definitely stronger than it was even just a few years back, but it's something that I always am going to be trying to work on. There are definitely ebbs and flows. There are times where it's strong and times where it's a little bit weaker, but I think as long as you're always just trying to get better, trying to strengthen it in any way that you can, that's all that matters. Where I'm at in my life right now is I'm really just trying to prioritize my own personal learning when it comes to Islam. So listening to Islamic lectures, journaling, and trying to actually actualize the information that I'm learning in my own life. I'm really trying to take like a deliberate approach, I guess, with Islam in a way that I didn't before. How is postgrad life? I filmed a 1-year postgrad life update a couple months ago now. It's something I talk about so much across social media platforms. I have the Postgrad Diary series over here, and then on TikTok I will sometimes post my reflections as they come. I think coming into postgrad, I didn't expect how much of a transformative period of my life that this time would be, and it's because you're going through so much change and it can look so differently for everyone. It's a difficult time, it's a joyous time. There's just so much that you're learning about yourself and you're going through and you're experiencing. Alhamdulillah for this chapter of my life, because I feel like I have changed and I've grown so much. I think taking this extra time before law school has given me the space to really grow and come into myself, and I feel like once it is time for me to go off to law school, I will have such a deeper sense of who I am, my belief system, and kind of what I want out of my life and my career, that all the hardships that I endured will be worth it. If you're someone who's struggling with where you're at post-grad, perspective is so important. The way that you look at your hardship or your blessing, and both, really shape how you experience them. That's something that I've really come to realize, that it really is sometimes just a mindset shift that you need. It's not you living in a new city, it's not you having a new job, it's not you having new friends, it's really just you having a different perspective on your life. Post-grad is such impactful time of your life that I just don't understand why it's not represented in the media. Like, there's so many movies and TV shows about high school, a few about college, but post-grad I feel like really does shape who you are and sets a foundation for the rest of your life. There's so many aspects of it to unpack, but it has definitely, alhamdulillah, been such a transformative time, at least personally for me. Are you doing law school for grad school? If yes, where? I am, inshallah, planning on going to law school. I pretty much finished submitting my applications. I'm just in the stage of waiting to hear back from schools. I have no idea where I'll end up next year, and I think at one point in my life that would have scared me, but I think it's cool and exciting that I have no idea what state or city that I'll end up in. Were you ever a coffee person before matcha? I guess that's a misperception people have of me, is that I'm always drinking matcha or that I only drink matcha. I actually love both. I drink coffee and I drink matcha, but I think I just post matcha a lot more. And when I'm going out, I tend to get matcha because I live in Southern California and we have access to such good matcha that why wouldn't I take advantage? But I will say the one thing that sucks about matcha is it can easily go wrong. If you don't get the ratio correct in a matcha, it's federal. What gets you out of reading slumps? I kind of just like ride the wave when it comes to reading slumps. My recommendation, if you are trying to get out of a reading slump, is to pick up a highly rated book, a book that everyone is rating a 5 out of 5 stars, because it's most likely going to be really good. You're most likely going to enjoy it. And also a lot of people are talking about it online. So as you're reading it, you can kind of either talk to other people IRL or just engage with the discourse online. But sometimes you just gotta ride the wave of reading slump. I'm trying to discover myself and know my self-worth. What tips can you give me? This is a really good question, and I actually just filmed a whole entire video about self-worth and self-respect, because that is definitely one of the realizations I came to during post-grad, is self-worth and self-respect, and it's something that I've been personally trying to work on in my own self. In that video, I kind of talked about the social side and the professional side, because those are kind of the ways that I personally engage with and experience self-worth and self-respect. I think I'm someone who definitely is really good at it in a social aspect, but I personally struggle a lot more with self-worth and self-respect in the academic professional realm. I really do believe that the insecurities that we have stem from something in our childhood, stem from this stereotype or false narrative we've been conditioned to tell ourselves, that you're not worthy of love because of X, Y, and Z, that you're not worthy of respect because of X, Y, and Z, that you don't deserve a certain opportunity because of X, Y, and Z. And it really is rooted in something that happens early on in life. I struggled a lot with imposter syndrome. And for me, where I feel like it came from is growing up, I was told a lot by my parents that you have to work twice as hard to get anywhere because of who you are, what you look like, all of these things, which I think is the reality of the world that I'm kind of navigating. I was definitely a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to school. Like when I was in elementary school, I think just maturity wise, I was a lot less mature than my peers, and that was feedback that we would get all the time at parent teacher conferences. Like, she's really smart and she has a capacity for it, but she can't pay attention, and she's, you know, she just is very immature compared to people her age. So when I was younger, I wasn't the best at school, and it wasn't until middle school where I kind of evened out a little bit and I started performing higher. I think the catalyst for that, to be honest, was when I put the hijab on, because I put the hijab on in the 6th grade, and while I didn't really think that decision through at the time, I really feel like that forced me to kind of come into myself a little bit and just kind of mature a bit. I really feel like that was kind of an eye-opener of like, you're not a little kid anymore and you're becoming a young woman, and there are certain expectations, certain standards that you need to live up to. I just became a lot more conscious of the world at that time. I also put on this identity of being visibly Muslim. It really just forced me to come into my own. A lot of the times, I just always felt like no matter how well I did, no matter how hard I worked, it just wasn't enough. Over time, that I think that kind of translated into a lot of the imposter syndrome that I felt later on in my life. You won't really come to those realizations unless you reflect, especially on your early life. The things that you were told, the things that you experienced, the way that people talked to you or treated you, the way that you perceive certain things that happened to you at a young age, and how that informs your perspective today. Once you come to that realization, you're not done. The work is not done. It's not enough to just come to that realization of where these feelings came from. You really have to change the way that you show up in your life. So if you're in a situation where someone's trying to take advantage of you, for example, or if someone's not respecting you, you got to stand on business. You cannot allow them to treat you in a way that you would before you came into realization of what your self-worth was. And I think the more that you show up for yourself, the more that you stand up for yourself and stand up for your boundaries, the more it reinforces that I am someone who's worthy of love. I am someone who's worthy of this opportunity. I am someone who's worthy of a good quality friendship or a good quality relationship. I really hope that helped. I'll have that video linked in the description box if you guys want to hear more on that topic. As a fellow West African girly, do you get pressure when it comes to marriage? That pressure definitely exists societally and also on a cultural level, but not really from my close family and from my close community, which alhamdulillah, because that definitely relieves a lot of pressure for me. It's just not a pressure that really affects me. It's a pressure that exists, and I definitely see it in the media that I'm consuming and just in the cultural expectations, I think, that are placed. Those expectations can exist but you control how you react to them or how much you allow those expectations to rule over your life. And it's definitely easier said than done. I'm very privileged in the sense that like my close community isn't also exacerbating that same pressure. But if you're someone who's struggling with that, or if you have family that's putting that pressure on you and you just do not feel ready, I think just having a conversation with the people that you love and just letting them know, hey, like, I'm just, that is something that I want for myself, but I'm not ready in this moment. I want to work on my career, or I want to work on myself, or I want to work on X, Y, and Z at this point in my life. And inshallah, I want to get to this place so that once I am ready for that, I can show up so much better in a marriage, as a mother, as a wife. Parents' generation, people got married a lot younger. And alhamdulillah, I think especially for women, a lot of women are delaying marriage and are focusing more on their careers or just growing in themselves and maturing. And I do think that will inshallah have a lot more of a positive effect. I also think too, a lot of the times marriage is idealized and romanticized in a way that is unhealthy and places very unhealthy expectations or standards. There's definitely a balance to be had, but I think it's just an institution that I personally have so much respect for. The way that I would go about kind of communicating that with people that are putting that pressure on you is just sharing what it is you want out of it and the reason why you're just not ready for it in that moment. And hopefully they will kind of come to an understanding. It's definitely not something that I think that you should go into it just for the sake of other people, because you're gonna have to reap the consequences if things go south. You're gonna have to live in that marriage or in that relationship. It is such a huge choice, especially when you think about things like kids and like starting a family. That is such a huge impactful thing. I also just think that something we don't talk about within the Muslim community is that sometimes we just have a period of our lives where we just need to put our heads down and lock in. Like, we need to work on ourselves or work on our career or develop self-love before we're ready for that. Allah is the best of planners. If it hasn't happened, there is a reason. There is something else that needs to happen. There's some work that you need to do before you're ready for that. What is your favorite local matcha spot? In Orange County, definitely Aroma. They actually opened up a new location. Aroma's so good, but there's so many good matcha spots in Orange County. I can honestly put together a list. How has been your experience as a hijabi in your travels? Weirdly enough, when it comes to traveling, I've never had bad experiences as someone who wears hijab. Airport security is a whole different conversation. I've actually had better experiences traveling abroad than in the US. Mainly traveled to Muslim countries, so that definitely affects things, with the exception of India. But India also has a pretty large Muslim population. And then also Paris. But honestly, Paris, it was giving Muslim. And I really do think the rampant Islamophobia, the rising Islamophobia in politics and society there is a whiplash against the influx of the Muslim population and how much the Muslim presence is in that city and in that country. But alhamdulillah, I haven't had bad experiences. And to the contrary, I actually think traveling to Muslim countries has really helped me personally with my journey with hijab and also just my perception of modesty. If you could relive one day of your life, which one would you choose and why? Graduation. Graduation was such a fun day. It was really nice too because I went to school pretty far away from home. So while I was in college, my parents didn't really visit me. They would just kind of move me in and move me out. So it was really fun that weekend to take my parents around, take them to my favorite spots, and also just see pride on their faces when I walked across the stage and when it was like all said and done. You know, just seeing all of their sacrifices and the hard work that they have really invested into us, into me and my sisters, really just culminate in that day. It was really special. Any advice for girlies in undergrad? Yes, actually, don't do anything that you don't want to do. And what I mean by this is don't spend time doing club stuff just for the sake of packing your resume. Do stuff that you're genuinely interested in. Going to Berkeley, there's a huge club culture and it's really difficult to navigate. A lot of it is just very performative and it's really easy to fall into this trap of just doing things because they look good on paper. But I feel like if you do things that you're genuinely interested in and pursue things that you have a genuine passion for, not only will you be more successful even on paper, but I also think that you will just get so much more out of your college experience. And so that's something that I kind of realized a little bit too late in my college experience towards the end. And you best believe once I came to that realization, things started dropping like flies. What is a New Year's resolution that you've reached so far and one that you haven't reached? I actually have not checked in with my New Year's goals in a minute, so this will be interesting to see. All the way back to January. Okay. Alhamdulillah, I actually, looking at my goals, I crossed off 8 out of 11. Alhamdulillah, I really do feel like a lot of the goals that I set for this year I was able to accomplish. One of the goals that I wrote down that I was able to accomplish was to learn how to cook. I definitely have a long ways to go, but I really have come a far way when it comes to cooking. Now I feel like I have a much better grip on it. One goal that I have not accomplished is journaling twice a week. And I think I wrote that goal thinking, oh, journaling twice a week is no problem. That must be easy. Journaling, I've really fallen off the wagon with journaling. I think the thing that's made a difference this year with my goals and me being able to accomplish them has been the fact that I really created systems to help me, which is something that they talk about in Atomic Habits, the importance of not only setting goals, but also having systems to help you reach those goals. For me, the system that I created was I set my goals for the year. I set about 11 to 12 goals for the year, and I tried to be pretty specific with them. Some of them were a little bit more broad. I set those goals, and then I would set monthly goals to help feed into those yearly goals, and then weekly tasks to help me achieve those yearly goals. Constantly reminding myself of the direction that I have for the year, I think really helped. Another thing that I think made a difference was the winter arc last year. So the months that I spent leading up to January prepping for the new year and getting myself ready, starting to work on those goals really gave me a head start to the new year. What is your favorite country you've traveled to and why? I used to say Turkey. Now I think it's a tie between Turkey and Senegal. Senegal was such a cool experience. It was my first time traveling to an African country outside of Mauritania, which was really special in and of itself. I really loved Senegal because it was a country that was so rich in culture, music, history. It just had a little bit of everything. They even had shopping. We only really spent time in Dakar, and we were only there for a week, so we only saw a very small portion, a really small subsection of the country. But Dakar was beautiful. I would describe it as California meets New York, but in West Africa, which is just the coolest blend. It was also really cool to just see a African country that's a little bit more developed than Mauritania, because I feel like it was a lot easier to envision myself like in an alternate reality, being able to live in an African country. That's something that I've just never really experienced for myself, so it was really cool to see. I loved my time there. It was so fun. The food was really good too. What is your favorite historical fiction? This is really hard, guys, because historical fiction is actually one of my favorite genres. Definitely can film a historical fiction Rex video for you guys and share some of my favorites. If you're trying to get into historical fiction, I would pick up anything by Kristen Hanna. Ones that I really like by her are The Four Winds, The Women, The Great Alone. The Nightingale is pretty good. It's popular for a reason. But I'll definitely film a historical fiction book Rex video for you guys because I've read a lot of historical fiction. It's one of the genres I really gravitate towards. What is your favorite Khaled Hosseini book? I currently have 3 Khaled Hosseini books. The first one that I read was The Kite Runner in high school. This is my original copy featuring a little bit of water damage. I read A Thousand Splendid Suns in college just for fun. And then I also have And the Mountains Echoed. I started this a while ago, but I just never finished it. If you guys have read this book, let me know if you guys think I should re-pick it up. So I've only really read these 2. I obviously loved The Kite Runner, but I feel like I just connected to A Thousand Splendid Suns so much more. It's from a female perspective and it is really intense, but I think just being a woman and reading from a female perspective just made me connect to the story a lot more. What are some recent book recs? So I actually shared this stack of books in a recent TikTok, but I'll go ahead and share them again on here. The Lion, Women in Tehran by Marzan Kamali. Beautiful book. It takes place in Iran from the 1950s to the present. Story about friendship. It takes you through the social and political landscape of how we kind of got to where we're at right now with the current political climate. Everything I know about parties, dates, friends, jobs, life. Love by Dolly Alderton. I think any woman in her 20s or 30s, this is mandatory. Hilarious read. Malas by Marcela Fuentes. This is just such a vivid, beautiful story. It takes place in the Mexico-Texas border region. It's an intergenerational story. I actually cannot believe this is her debut novel. Ascendant Kingdom by Ya Jessie explores the intersection of religion and science, specifically from a Ghanaian Christian perspective. The main character is a researcher at Stanford, and she's trying to research the origins of addiction because her older brother suffered from addiction his entire life, and so it's a topic that really hits close to home. As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow was probably one of the most heartbreaking reads I have ever read, and it takes place during the Syrian civil war. I need to get back into sharing my book recs. How do you maintain creativity in your life? This question has always been a hard question because every once in a while when I do a Q&A, I get this question a lot. I think my creativity is just something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me, and it's something that I see throughout my life, like in my childhood and in my adolescence. It's just kind of the way that I express myself, whether it's through writing, filming, different mediums of storytelling. But I do think it's something that we all have inside of ourselves. We all have a degree of creativity in our lives or within us. We just need to tap into it. What encouraged you to become a content creator? I started posting videos on YouTube when I was 15. I actually had to put together a presentation to convince my mom on why I was allowed to post on YouTube. This was at a time where she wouldn't even let me have Instagram or Snapchat or anything, and my first form of social media was YouTube, which is insane to me. But it was just really fun, and I was bored one summer, and I always loved making videos growing up. Me and one of my sisters really loves videos and just capturing moments, and that's kind of how it started. It was never something that I thought I would be doing for a really long time. It was never something that I would try and pursue seriously in any way. It was just something that started one summer, and I have just never really stopped since. As a Black Muslim student currently at Cal, I want to know how your time at Cal was. I loved my time at Cal so much. I love that school real bad, and I hate to hear any slander about that school. Especially just living and growing up in Orange County, there's so much fear mongering when it comes to Berkeley. So many people before I went there would just tell me about how dangerous the area was and how I would get killed on that campus. I also just heard a lot about how competitive the school was and how cutthroat everyone is. And yes, that exists, but it is such a beautiful campus. It is just it's a place where you really learn from your peers, and it was such a privilege to just be around the people that I met there. Like, I met such incredible, smart, ambitious people that had such an interesting vision and perspective on life. My time there was just such a blessing, alhamdulillah. Being Black and going to Berkeley for me wasn't a challenge because I'm from Orange County, and Orange County is already very white. We have a very small Black population. So I've been used to being the minority for a long time in my life, and also growing up Muslim as well. You just develop a little bit of a thicker skin. Weirdly enough, even though Berkeley is known for not having a lot of Black people or just having a very small Black community, I actually felt like I saw a lot more Black people than I was used to in Orange County. There are a lot of different pockets of community that you can really tap into. There's a lot of really cool spaces to get involved in, and I would say just take advantage of your time there. Okay, my camera's starting to die, so we gotta hurry through these last few questions. Advice for struggles with hijab. Struggles with the hijab are just kind of a part of the experience, and I definitely think that it's normal to struggle with hijab. There are going to be times where it's a lot easier and times where it's a lot more difficult, but just hold on to your hijab and just know that any struggle that you experience, you're being rewarded for. And I think if you're someone who's trying to get better in your hijab, remind yourself of the intention of it, remind yourself of the beauty of it. There's so much Islamic knowledge that we have access to just learn more about the hijab, the purpose of it, the benefits of it, meaning of it. And I think a lot of the times you can develop really unhealthy relationships with it based on, you know, what our culture says about it or how we're raised to think about it. But just go back to the source, go back to the original understanding of what the hijab means and connect it to your own journey with your iman. Definitely think that it's something where you don't have to be perfect to put it on. And I say this as someone who put it on when I was 12. I barely came into myself. Like, I had so much work to do on myself, but I think for me, the way that I have seen my hijab is it's always been a tether. If you're at a state in your life where your iman is weak and all you have is your hijab and your prayer, that is your tether, that is your link to it, and that is kind of your North Star and what will keep you connected to it even when so much around you is crumbling. You just have to have grace with yourself and be patient with yourself, and as long as you have that effort and that desire every single day, that's all that matters. How has Islam shaped your character? Islam has shaped my character in so many different ways. I attribute my patience to Islam. I attribute my discipline to Islam. I attribute my open-mindedness to Islam. So many aspects of my character are rooted in Islam. It's hard to see that when you're younger, but I think the older you are and the more you understand yourself better, the more you come into yourself, the more you understand how so many of the positive qualities you've developed have come from being raised Muslim and being raised within the religion. What advice would you give to someone trying to make content on YouTube? Start, and do not wait to be perfect, to have the right equipment. Literally just start and adjust later. I started when I was 15. I didn't know what I was doing. I look back at my videos from even a year ago and I cringe. Don't be a perfectionist. Trying to be a perfectionist will hold you back. I'm very type A and I like things to be as good as possible before I like present them to the world or post them. But I think what I have learned with content creation over the years is you just gotta let go a little bit and just honestly be spontaneous and have fun with it. So just post whatever it is you want to post, that you feel like you want to post, and in 6 months if you hate it, you can literally take it down. Alhamdulillah, I feel like I have developed a really healthy relationship with social media. I've definitely gone through periods of time where I've just like thought more about how people perceive me, but alhamdulillah, I've gone to a point where I just don't really care how people perceive me, and I know that social media is not reality. And so for me, I just see it as a form of self-expression and a place to have the conversations that I want and to express myself in a way that I don't get to on a daily basis. And so as long as you understand your intention and what you want out of it and you try and stay true to that, that's all that matters. Thank you guys so much for all of your guys' questions. This was really fun to sit down and chat. Let me know if there are any videos you guys want to see specifically. I'll definitely work on some book rec videos for you guys, including that historical fiction book rec video. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I will see you guys